Welcome to this week's lecture. Today, we're exploring one of the most critical aspects of modern communication, that is, how to connect with diverse audiences in a rapidly changing social landscape. You'll learn in this presentation how to devise effective strategies that not only reach but resonate with people from a variety of backgrounds. We'll also explore how to engage multicultural communities in ways that are both respectful and impactful. Additionally, we'll learn how to formulate fresh approaches for authentically connecting with diverse audiences. And finally, we'll shine a light on audiences that often get overlooked, those whose voices deserve more space in our media and messaging. So let's get started. Now, as you work through understanding exactly who your audience is, it's important to note that audiences are divided into segments, each unique yet with shared traits. Great advertisers recognize and respect this diversity. With each generation, the US becomes more multicultural. In less than 30 years, non white groups will make up the majority. Understanding this shift and that there's no one typical family is essential. Today's parents are older, more educated, and often overwhelmed. So, when positioning a product as the hero, empathy matters. Advertising must therefore evolve to reflect the realities of our changing society. Multicultural is a term used to describe racial and ethnic groups in advertising, most often Black, Latinx, and Asian American consumers. Together, they represent the largest consumer group with immense spending power and cultural influence. To reach them effectively, you must go beyond surface level messaging. Authentic communication is going to be key here. And despite their differences, many multicultural audiences are united by key trends. For example, ethnic and cultural pride, a growing focus on wellness, and strong support for cause driven marketing. They also value culturally relevant content, especially when it's created by people who share their backgrounds and lived experiences. In today's advertising landscape, authenticity isn't optional, it's expected. There are two key approaches to reaching diverse audiences. The first is multicultural strategy, which focuses on cultural difference, recognizing how ethnicity and identity shape consumer behavior. Next is cross cultural strategy. This strategy blends multiple cultures into one segment using shared interests or media habits as a unifying thread. This approach reduces the number of segments while increasing diversity within each one. Both strategies require thoughtful planning and a deep respect for cultural nuance. When it comes to advertising, one size does not fit all. The African American segment, for example, are 58% more likely to expect brands to take a stand on Black issues and 37% more likely to support brands that actually do. This community leads in live TV viewership, gaming, smartphone media, audio streaming, and social media influence. Advertisers are certainly paying attention. Spending increased by 16%, reaching $4 billion from the top 20 brands alone amongst this segment. Additionally, 87% of African Americans say ethnic recognition in advertising matters. They're 38% more likely to buy a product when they see Black representation in the ads. And for higher earning Black households, cultural recognition becomes even more influential in purchase decisions. Representation isn't just meaningful, it drives results among this group. Now, there are over 60 million Latinx people in the US, about 18% of the population, with a powerful $1.9 trillion in buying power. The term Hispanic was originally coined by advertisers, but many prefer identifiers tied to their heritage, like Mexican, Dominican, or Cuban. Latinx emerged as part of a global movement toward inclusivity and gender neutral language, and it's most commonly used by younger Hispanic women. Understanding language and identity is key to meaningful engagement amongst this group. Now, to connect with the Hispanic audience, ancestry, language, and cultural values must be front and center. 71% speak Spanish at home, and many live in multi generational households where family plays a big role in purchase decisions. They're also increasingly shopping online, blending tradition with modern consumer behavior. Cultural context is therefore everything. Now, for this group, advertisers must connect through both language and culture. However, they will need to be mindful of slang, dialects, gender, and tone, all of which can vary depending on the country of origin. A one size fits all message won't work here. Cultural sensitivity makes all the difference. Furthermore, young Latinx audiences often identify as bicultural. Bilingual Latinx consumers respond more strongly to advertising in Spanish and prefer Spanish language conversations online, in music, and on TV. Latinx youth are heavy users of digital media. They stream videos, listen to music, download apps, and play online games. So, understanding this blend of cultures is essential for effective engagement. All right, so we're moving on to the Asian American community. Nearly 20 million Asian Americans trace their roots to over 19 countries across South, East, and Southeast Asia, as well as the Indian subcontinent. This population has grown by 7 million in the last decade, with an estimated buying power of $1.3 trillion. They are especially prominent consumers of food, tech, and clothing. So, understanding this diversity is going to be critical to how we market to this group. Let me try to add some context here. So, Asian American culture has made a big impact on US pop culture. Think bubble tea. Their households are 40% more likely to be multi generational. They have the highest average incomes among racial and ethnic groups, especially Indian, Filipino, and Japanese communities. At the same time, income inequality is growing rapidly within this group. Asian Americans engage heavily on TV connected devices, often choosing broadband over cable and supporting culturally relevant streaming content. What we are seeing today is marketers that are partnering with Asian influencers to reach these often hard to access audiences. And then there are the indigenous peoples. Now, indigenous peoples have long faced media stereotypes and have often been ignored by mainstream outlets. Increasingly, they're using grassroots tactics to advance their causes, partnering with environmentalists and celebrities to fight climate change and protect sacred lands. Indigenous youth are harnessing social media, streaming platforms, and influencers to raise awareness of their culture and important issues, using hashtags as a way to amplify their voices. Most Native Americans haven't lived on reservations since the early 1960s. The third largest Native population is in Chicago, despite there being no reservation nearby. In the 2020 elections, Native voters turned out in large numbers in states like Arizona and Wisconsin. Meanwhile, racist team mascots using native names were removed from schools and professional sports. This is still a matter up for debate. The next segment that we'll address is the religious community. Now, religious communities are diverse and complex. Let's pause to think about this for a moment. Not all Arabs are Muslim, and not all Muslims are Arabs. Effective advertising respects these intersectional identities without alienating others. Muslim Americans have $170 billion in purchasing power. Some brands have courted this audience but faced backlash due to misunderstanding and unfair accusations. To succeed, brands must act ethically and respectfully, always ready for responses from all faiths. Disrespecting religious figures or symbols risk moral harm and social media backlash. The key here is thoughtful, respectful engagement that honors the rich intersectional nature of religious identities. The final segment that we'll explore today are people with disabilities. Now, to represent people with disabilities authentically, their input, advocacy, and presence are essential. Gerber's Baby campaign back in 2010 broke ground by featuring the first child born with Down syndrome. Similarly, Mattel's dolls with diverse abilities, including prosthetics and wheelchairs, empower youth through inclusivity. As social movements grow, it's vital to put people with disabilities at the forefront to challenge ableism. Aries' viral campaign celebrated differently abled beauty, inspiring many. In the UK, the Visible campaign successfully pushed for legal requirements to represent disabilities in advertising. Sweden's ICA featured Jerry, an employee with cognitive disabilities, in a long running campaign. And finally, brands like Gucci and Benefit Cosmetics are joining this important movement toward inclusive advertising. As we wrap this lecture up, I want to talk about the three key reasons why we should include people with disabilities in advertising. First, it's simply the right thing to do. Second, it's commercially smart. And third, in places like Britain, it's a legal requirement. It's time for all advertisers to celebrate inclusive voices, raise awareness, and break down the stigmas surrounding disability. The bottom line is diversity matters.